All right. So that is the subject for today, conflict resolution. Um, so in the breakout group, which we're not going to do because this is it, we want to talk about the solutions, some solutions to conflict that may look different than you currently deal with. So is conflict a challenge? Is it something that you guys think you do well, or is it something that can be improved? For me, I'm almost 60, and I've spent probably 58 years avoiding conflict and stuffing and not really dealing with it head on and being really unhealthy right, because of it. Um, Maybe because of my own insecurities. Uh, trying to please people, um, just feeling insecure in what I was feeling. And then the last, which is a big topic recently, is just not loving myself. You know, we're called to love the Lord and then love ourselves so we can love others. And I really have been so critical of myself. Um, I I I think I think everything must be my fault. So I don't deal with it, but then I'm raging just under the surface. So it's been this topic for me has been huge
Give it to me.
try to overcome in the last couple of years.
I'm the top.
What about you guys? Is this something you deal with well or no?
Go on, big.
I think conflict is probably our worst. Definitely how we deal with conflict is um, if our marriage were to end, it would be because of the conflict and how we deal with conflict and or how rather we don't deal with it. I mean, we deal with it, but it's he knows triggers, I know triggers, and we're guaranteed we're both going to hit every single trigger all the way down from the beginning of the argument to the end of the argument and everywhere in between. I saw Corey was like, whenever he said, make sure whenever conflict arises to stop, don't even address it, wait till you're both fed and well rested. I mean, that would probably help like probably 90% of me, because I always like I want to address it right then. And then if he does this laugh, is like, huh, or like says something, even while the video was playing, when it said about forgiveness, he's hit my knee. Like, yeah, see, that's what you don't do. And I'm like, you just triggered me. But I don't know how to step back from being triggered and say, you know what, I'm either going to ignore it or wait for it to go away, or wait till, I mean, we're fasting right now, so I'm super hungry. And I'm like, or wait till we've been fed or not tired. I think maybe doing that would be a huge step forward. The first thing is just wait till we're fed, hungry, and it's not, because our fights generally happen when the kids are screaming. My mom's up here, my mother lives with us too. My mom's up here saying something about something. I'm trying to cook dinner or I'm trying to clean. And I have like sensory issues. So the minute everything's at me, I have zero capability to respond in a calm, logical manner. I go right for the jugular. And so I think for me personally, I need to step back and wait and just address it later.
One thing, as you're talking too, it's important to kind of not to always be introspective, but to try to be more introspective, to know that conflict starts with you, because you're dealing with conflict out of old triggers. Like it could be something your mom did or your dad did, or, and we're reacting because we're not really dealing with ourselves well. And the second point I wanted to make, if you guys haven't done the life starters journaling, this would be a great week to do it, because it's all about conflict throughout the word. And if we really want to start changing how we view conflict in our heart, it's got to start with Jesus, because we could sit here and tell you all kinds of practical things and how to white knuckle it and how to do better. But at the end of the day, if we don't get a shift in our heart through the word, that, I told you my story. The reason that I'm different today than I was even 2 years ago is because of this journaling process. I've just spent so much more time in the word. really understanding God's word about who I am in Christ and feeling more confident about my identity in Christ. And therefore, everything looks different. So I would just highly recommend, as much as everybody's too busy and it's got 100 reasons why they can't do certain things, that spending time in the word specifically on conflict really helps you get a new understanding of you're dealing with it in Christ. So
Yeah. Also, just to speak, Sarah, to what you said, for us as women, especially, well, I think men, obviously men do it too. John was just saying, but to stuff things is not good. So if it's chaotic, as you were saying, Sarah, and like something triggers you all of a sudden, even get a little notebook. It's not about scoring. It's about just that hurt my feelings, or that trigger really upset me. Just quickly jot it so you can go back to it yourself. We can go, this is just an idea. We can just go back to it ourselves and pray it out with the Lord. And as John said, is this my deal, or is this something I really need to talk with my husband about? Because, any of it you can talk to your husband about.
it's really important to talk it out either way.
Yes.
Even at the end of the day, if it's you being you,
allow your husband in on that.
Right. If you can talk it out, that's the thing. Because I was too logical with my conflict, and then I would end up waiting a couple of days, and then it was all my fault. So I didn't deal with it. I didn't talk. It's not that it was necessarily Victoria's fault or anything, but I had to tell her how I was feeling, and I realized after prayer that it was a coach, or it was a partner or somebody else in my life that actually triggered it. But I felt like when we had that conflict, I wanted to point it at you. It's just so much healthier, because now she can go, oh, now I can really recognize that I don't want to do that.
Right. Because it's all about us loving each other, right? I mean, we're for our spouse, not against. And I know when things get heated, we end up, becoming each other's enemy. But when I can hear what he thought I did, and I could be like, God, my heart was not in to say that at all. I could hear, the pain in him, or the frustration, or the hurt. And then I can be like, oh, I love you. And I want to, Sarah, you're laughing up a storm over there. But also, I just want to say quickly,
No, it's just more reasons with conflict. I mean,
I was gonna say something to her, and that's what made her laugh, but that's all right.
because
That's all right.
One last quick for everyone, all of us. When we start dealing with conflict resolution, let's say you're going to sit down and you're going to try and make some time together. Huge help. One thing, huge help. Hold each other's hands while you're talking the whole time. That's going to remind you that you are married, that you love each other, that this, like Corey was saying, you're trying to get through to the other side of this. You cannot.
But don't draw blood.
Yeah, no nails. Hold each other's hands, because if you take the emotions out of it all, you guys have a company, and this company you need to have succeed. So you have to conflict resolution, or the whole company is going to fall apart. And that includes all your employees, which are your children. And you don't want that to happen, because if you guys can't come together and deal with conflict, just like in a company, in a business, then the company's going to fall apart. So if you can just think of it as a company, like we really need, I'm the CFO or whatever. I need to, really, whatever it is. What is it? CFO, CEO? I don't know what that.
You're the chief marketing officer. You like to have fun. I'm the CFO, COO, CEO.
Whatever I am, I've got to help keep our company alive. I'm the soulmate. So that whole submission thing comes into play, where yes, we are underneath him, but we also have a role in this relationship. So it's half of my responsibility to conflict resolution, figure out the resolution. It's also half of my ability to love my husband during all of this and help him feel respected while he's sharing his heart. And I might not like it right away. I might have to say, time out. let me go, yell in a pillow, but I want to come back and fix this. So is any of this making sense? How are y'all feeling about it?
CJ,
CJ and
Keisha.
Keisha.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. The holding hands part, we're gonna have to get used to,
You what?
but, the holding hands part and talking it through, we're gonna have to get used to that.
Oh,
But that would probably, I
But-
mean, if I
but-
could get there, it would calm me down.
Yeah, it would.
yeah, it helps unite you because
Yeah.
you guys do love each other. That's why you're in this marriage.
And I'm sure you guys have heard this. I've probably heard it 100 times, but when you are in conflict, simply changing the language, like instead of "you made me whatever," just that when you do that, I feel this way. It's like,
Yeah.
for me, it's so, because now it's not my fault or I'm not the reason she feels that way. I may have triggered it, but she feels that way for some other reason. And I can so much more embrace that as her husband than if you made me feel that way. Because now I'm defensive. Now we're having a throwdown and, it's on. But if we can just talk more like, hey, I feel this way because, and if we can take the time to unpack why we feel that way, I'm telling you, it's like night and day when it comes to dealing with it.
What happens is when we get hit that way, we feel that immediately the person's trying to attack us and we feel defensive and we want to protect ourselves. That's our knee-jerk reaction. But the bottom line is that if we can, God, I'm sorry, just this point I made just slipped from my head. It makes me so mad. This is where I came in. I understand with you, CJ, in the morning. You're like, okay, hold on. But shoot, I'm gonna skip. I'm gonna pass. I know, I need to make notes.
Anyway, so what about you guys? Anything? How?
I would say, yeah, I mean, I definitely struggle with, I just want to point out everything that he's doing wrong versus looking inside and acknowledging that, we may just do different things or approach things differently. And similar to Sarah, I think I'm like a bottle that explodes, right? So I think we are conflict avoidant until we're not, until I can't hold it in. And then it's just, and it's typically not about him, right? I mean, I think somebody said something about that, right? So often it's something bigger that is rubbing me or has nothing to do with him.
So it's important, right? You guys, as you go back to your couple of touch points each day, to be a little bit more overt about, like, hey, I forgive me if I've shared any of these stories before, because I have so many different classes going on right now, but I have a business partner who is wired exactly the opposite of me. And we frustrate each other all the time. So part of an agenda we have in our weekly meeting is, what did I do to piss you off this week? And I mean, it sounds silly and kind of funny, but the fact is, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't tell him. And he's so gregarious, he doesn't think anything's wrong anyway. So, I have to say, we missed a meeting, you did this, you did that, and it made me feel this way. And he's so much more receptive because I'm not mad about it. By that, first of all, I kept it on a short leash. Second of all, I had to say it because it was on the agenda. Otherwise, I would start justifying, well, that's just the way he is. I don't really need to say anything. But at the end of the day, I still felt something that was making me feel disrespected by my partner. So we have a much better relationship because of that.
What I wanted to say, I'm sorry, is we got to remember that there's an enemy, right, that is prowling around, trying to divide and destroy our marriage. So when we do not talk, when we do not share conflict, the enemy lives there and he loves that. Even if you take the spouse part out, as brothers and sisters of Christ, we must keep unity and peace. I mean, that's what we're called to, even before marriage. So we have to kick that enemy out, and we have to come together and not allow, when there's the division, the enemy can, but when there's this, we're that cord of three. So we always have to keep that cord of three to keep ourselves united and kick the enemy out.
Let me ask you guys a question. It's off script, but why are you married?
Love each other.
What's your purpose for marriage?
I think we do love each other. We love spending time together. I definitely think,
What's the
my
purpose?
well, the purpose is to be with her. I guess when we met, she makes you feel a certain way. I guess my love language is quality time. I love spending time with her, even if it's just us talking or, doing anything together. Whether it's with the kids or not. I think that's the biggest thing, just, wanting to be with her, wanting to be around her more. I guess that's why we got married. We love her, and,
It's just, it's a big question. And most people don't answer it. Most people don't go there. But if you guys can really, don't just flippantly say whatever you think it is off the top of your head, but spend some time this week talking about it, because ultimately the why, the purpose, the real depth of why we're together makes all of this change, right? If we're just trying to coexist, conflict is conflict. And guess what? I'm going to be selfish. It's more about me. But if we coexist for a reason, if we have a bigger purpose, which, again, we are a little older than you guys, and we don't have little kids at home anymore. So we're in this together for ministry. God's using us. And for me, that's given me a different perspective on why I should deal with my wife a certain way, because I know it's not about me. Because she's my helpmate. She's my completeness in ministry, and I need her as part of what I do for God. And I know I don't want to over spiritualize it, but it makes everything I work at more meaningful, because I'm not just doing it because somebody at church told me to. I'm actually doing it because, and when I was your guys' age and younger, my trigger, quite honestly, was my kids. I wanted to do the best I could do for my kids. And that gave me all the, energy in the world to work on stuff in my marriage, because I didn't want to be inauthentic as a Christ follower and a leader for my children. So when it came to this, I just say all that because you guys got to come up with some higher purposes for yourself in marriage, so that when you're hearing all this stuff, it's not just another thing to do.
And even if both of you guys, I think, have adopted children, you've been gifted with, and you had that purpose and that heart. So I would think that, your purpose is to come together to create
Safety,
Christian,
love, Jesus.
Christian children. So, that are in a safe environment that can go now, because they see it at home, model Christian attitudes out into the world. We need that so desperately now. So even that purpose alone is a huge and great purpose. If the children are gifted to you, or gifts that you actually carry, then either way, your purpose, one of your purposes together as a couple, is to present to the world this Christian child, right?
And another marriage class that we've done, and I think Corey's going to do for future, is called The Promise for Life. It's about covenant, about the last real visible covenant of God in today's culture is Christian marriage. And again, not to add more guilt and not to add more
Just
labor, but understanding that a hurting world is watching you. And is your marriage different than your neighbors who maybe don't know Jesus? And sadly, most of the time it's not, and people want to see the authenticity and the reality of Jesus's love through you guys, and certainly your kids. you know, you want to raise kids that are different maybe than you were raised, or the, you know, the problems that you may have had because of all this stuff. I mean, that again, that was my trigger. I didn't want my kids to be like me in reality. I wanted them to be like Jesus. So does any of that resonate, CJ, Keisha? Not to make you feel guilty, but
No,
but
just
to inspire you to, you know, start looking at things from a new perspective, because that changes everything in conflict today. If I have that kind of vision, and I'm being frustrated in my own flesh, now I got to deal with it from a different perspective.
Mhm.
I'm trying not to preach to you, but
No, but I think that goes back to like kind of tabling it and coming back to it later, because you also have time to reflect uh, before you actually come to the discussion.
even like what Sean said, I would challenge you guys to write down somewhere what what attracted you to each other, why you love each other, and what you feel like your purpose is, which might change. Today, your purpose might be, you know, one kid has problems and you really got to focus on that kid together and you got to come in unity on that. Tomorrow, it might be something else. But if you guys can write that down on like a card and keep it somewhere and read it often, I think it changes your heart. It keeps the what's most important in front of you versus, damn it, I'm mad right now because he had the nerve or she had the nerve to say or do that.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that Keisha, like you said, when we just fly off the top of our head and say something when the emotion's there. My example of that is when I used to work in New York, and I was going to counseling, I was going to therapy, a psychologist, and I was also going to acting school. And in acting school, they want you, you know, when they pinch you, when you say something, you want that expression and you want that, hey, you know, they want that. So at the same time, the psychologist was teaching me not to do that in my relationships, but to speak it out, and it diminishes the fire. So then I was bringing what I learned with my psychologist into my acting class, and I sucked at acting, you know, because I wasn't fiery. But my point is being that that's how speaking, you know, how you're feeling, that hurt my feelings, diminishes the
Emotion.
I don't like you anymore, you know, the emotion.
Because we get reactive, and then everything becomes out of reaction,
Not out of real heart,
not out
trying
of
to
heart,
understand. And
not out of actually biblical truth. It's all out of what I'm feeling in the moment. And guess who's right in the middle of what you're feeling in the moment is the enemy, trying to make you trigger and react in the moment and not think ahead of what is the consequence of me. Like we've all heard this before. It's like you say one word that slips because you're angry, and now she owns that word for maybe a lifetime because I said the D word, or I said something stupid in the midst of anger, and now I can't take that back. And now it takes forever for me to get trust back again from her because I said something in anger. So again,
and then there's not safety. I wouldn't feel safe, and we're supposed to feel safe to each other. So that's what hurtful words, you know, when you just sarcastic words, all that, the person doesn't feel safe, and that shows. So those are the boundaries when we're conflict resoluting. We don't want to say you always do that and you're such a jerk. No name calling. I mean, you know, those are things that scar people.
And
right?
it's important. The big shift I had to make was looking at conflict resolution as a positive thing, where most of us avoid it because we think it's negative. But everything in nature has friction in order for it to grow. So if you don't have friction, you're not going to grow. And I see a lot of husbands and wives, especially Christian husbands and wives, who have found a really comfortable rut with one another, and they don't fight, they don't get frustrated, supposedly, but they leave each other alone and they don't grow either. They just get comfortably numb. And I remember my daughter was getting married, and she kept asking me, you know, how I felt about her husband to be, and I 3 times I said, you guys haven't had a fight yet. And she goes, no. I said, well, then I don't want you to get married. And she's like, that doesn't make any sense. I said, you're really never going to know the other person until you get into a fight and see how they handle themselves in conflict, because that's when the true colors come out. So I want you guys to make sure you have a fight before you get married. And she brought that up in a parenting class just last week, because we were talking about the same subject matter. But it's just important to deal with it, to fight fair and to fight healthily.
Especially in this world. I
Yeah.
mean, this world's getting,
Well, that was my
crazier and
other question, is
crazier.
like, how many of you guys deal with conflict with others? Because I shared with my partner, do you have a healthier relationship with other people where you deal with conflict?
A little bit. Not as much right now. I mean,
Yeah, you're kind of stuck at home.
we're stuck at home. I mean, we go out. We don't do much.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would say in general, we avoid relationships that create conflict, right? I mean, maybe at work, there might be a few things that, I might have to talk out with somebody, but in general, right? Aside from family relationships,
Well, even that, we have
well,
lots
that's the whole,
of conflict with parents, and
that's a whole new ballgame.
yeah, you could probably do a whole class on that.
You do 8 weeks, 10 weeks on that.
I was married once before, and I was married once before, and I wasn't walking with the Lord, and this person was not a believer at all. And if I had learned to talk my mind and to be able to share with him, I wonder how much of our relationship, not that don't get me wrong, not that I pine for this person, but I wonder any relationship, if I had just talked, sometimes guys might get frustrated. I don't know if I should go there on a sexual, but just that, they're afraid to talk to their wives about things that they think are going to upset them, and sometimes once it's out of the mouth, it just dissipates. And then they're not feeling this withdrawalness from their husband, or all these things, or the woman's not feeling that she's got to withdraw because she's protecting herself now because something's wrong with him and I don't know what it is and he's not talking about it. So we start withdrawing. Just bringing any words that the conflict goes away. I'm telling you what, it's just like it disappears.
well, and then the other thing, I think, Sarah, you touched on it, how different Sean is from you. A lot of times in conflict, we expect the other person to act, think, and talk like we do. And when they don't, we're offended by that, because I didn't fight. I don't fight my stuff. Both my wives can really fight pretty well. My first wife would shred me with words, and then she'd be like, okay, what are we going to do tonight? Like, what are we going to have for dinner? And she'd be okay. And I'd be like, no, you are in jail for the next 3 days because you talked, I wouldn't say that, but that's what was going through my head. So
and you wouldn't talk to her for 3 days.
It's really important to know it's okay to be different, and that we both have our ways of dealing with it. But it, like what Victoria does with me now, because I am still quite a stuffer, she'll say, she won't let me go. She'll say, like, I know you can't talk about this now. When are we going to talk about this? And I know I'm not getting away. I know I'm not going to go stuff it to the point where I make it so logical I don't deal with it. Because I have to come back and I have to at least explain my heart to her. And I'm telling you, that one thing has revolutionized my heart and our relationship, is because she won't let me go, but she won't force me to talk about it when we're in the midst of it. Because if I do, I'll just make something up just to shut it down. How many of us do that? Like, what do you want to hear is basically what we're saying. Okay, yeah, that's it. And here's how I feel. How's that? And the next thing you know, it's all good. But in fact, we just made something up to shut the conflict down.
And sometimes I'll say to him, are you telling me the truth? Is that really the truth of what it is? And he's like, sometimes he'll say, I think so.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like,
And then
I don't
sometimes
know.
he'll come back, later.
Guilty.
He'll come back
That's
then.
me.
He'll
I
come
think so.
But I, you know, honestly, I don't know. It's not that I'm lying, but when she asks me that,
Sometimes.
I'll have to go, well, maybe I am. You know, I've done it so long that I don't know that
So
I'm doing
sometimes
it.
he'll come back the next day and he'll say, I think really what happened the other day was this. And
Yeah.
he'll explain,
And
that he's so used to suppressing it that, sometimes he has to process it.
You guys are
and that's
laughing.
okay.
Tell us.
So it's
I'm
okay.
curious.
So it's okay to
When I
sit,
hear
get your thoughts together, then come back and discuss, right?
You
but
need
also,
to.
but also to give it time, like, can you try and do that? Or will that be today you'll get back to me? Or will that be tomorrow you'll get back
Yeah,
to me?
that's
Don't let it unend, because then the other person has to go and nag the other person for the response
yeah.
again.
Because if Sarah wants to deal with it right now,
Yes.
you can't. Sarah has to hear you say, oh, "Give me an hour," or
Okay.
after we put the kids to bed tonight, I will be ready to discuss. And then she's got to let it go, which is hard. But at least you're not saying I'm not dealing with it, because now I'm not dealing with it now means I don't respect the fact that you're frustrated with it, and then it gets worse.
Right.
So-
You have to let the other person know you're caring about what they're feeling. If you think they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. To them, they're offended and they need to talk, and they need to talk this out. And that's all that should matter. They feel badly and we're going to get through this. And then as that goes, as you start to do that, the offense isn't there as much, because you're starting to build trust. You're starting to understand each other's heart in it. It changes everything.
CJ, Keisha, I know you have something you were laughing about. So we are hitting a nerve.
Oh, just the I don't know, right?
Yeah,
And
I say I don't know a lot, or I say sometimes, and it's like brain. I mean, it's like stuck in my head. I mean, it's like I say it all the time. I say it when I teach with my coworkers. Sometimes, see, I mean,
That's a great catch.
yeah.
You're catching that.
yeah, but when you're in the middle of conflict, it's infuriating. So I like the pause and
But I
come
think
back to
when I
it.
say I guess so, I think it's coming to the reality that I might be wrong,
Right.
and myself just admitting to the mistake right away. It could be that, or it's that I wasn't really listening, and that for the listening, it's like I have so much in my head. I have other things in my head when Keisha talks to me sometimes, that I'm listening to her, but I'm not comprehending, because I'm thinking of other stuff. I'm thinking about school. I'm thinking about the kids. I'm thinking about, oh, the kids are downstairs. They're screaming.
And that's
They're
good.
fighting. They're doing whatever. And she could tell me something. I'm like, okay. So like my father-in-law. My father-in-law has on his right next to his where his seat is upstairs in the house. She knows what I'm getting at. He right on the end table. There's like a clay little head. And when I first met him, he sat there, and I'm like, "What is that?" Oh, it's a little head that wobbles, like goes like a rocking chair, and it's a yes dear head. So whenever I'm with him and her mom's in the kitchen or says something, in the first couple of years, he just looks at it. He's like, "Yes, dear."
Yeah.
So he wobbles it. I'm just saying, it's just
But it's true. So they stayed in their ruts, probably, where they could have been building, a closer, intimate relationship. And see,
right.
what I think is great is that even if you recognize that your head's going and you didn't really listen, you can that's going to send a trigger, and you can turn to her right there, grab her eyes, look at her in the eyes, and say, "I wasn't listening. I'm so sorry. Can you tell me that again?" I do that with
Or
all the time.
or I can say, let's talk about this in an hour
Even,
Yeah,
even
but
still.
again, I think you
or
guys,
two.
out of everything we talked about today, I would really challenge you or encourage you to come up with your own kind of strategy on how you're going to deal with it. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to arrest the old way and come up with a new way to really come together, because this is all about you guys learning to love each other in a new and exciting way, even though it's painful because it's different. But the difference really points to Jesus, not to you.
Right.
So,
Be-
go ahead.
I'm sorry, before we get off here, Sarah, I have something to say. Congratulations on your win last Sunday.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it.
I had to get it out there.
Hey, thank you. We'll see what we do next.
She's a Tampa Bay Bucks fan.
Oh,
We
Oh.
see.
Tom Brady. Oh,
Not a Brady fan, but I am a fan of Bucks.
I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, and I had to deal with Brady for the last 100 years.
My condolences.
Yeah. But we're gonna get TJ Watt, and he's gonna bring us to the Super Bowl. So
I mean, everybody has a win.
yeah. All right. Well, I hope we didn't talk too much. This is the problem with us being in the small group. We end up talking too much, but
Hopefully it gave you all just some
Yeah.
encouragement,
yeah.
some tips to think about. And again, like John said, make it your own,
Right.
I mean, we're just saying what we found that works for us, ideas, holding hands, and these are ideas
But
that
don't-
have really worked for us.
Don't go back to crazy busy and just forget what we said, because do something different for yourself,
Start
because
with the prayer. If you
it's
can do that, that would be,
because if you don't do it now, you'll just feel something will happen. You'll have to do it later, so just do it now, and life
Right.
will look different. So go ahead and cover us in prayer.